Hello and welcome to day 2 of GAP, Guided Attentive Prayer. I hope day 1 was blessed for you. I hope you enjoyed spending time in the presence of God and just being still with Him. I hope it was helpful. I hope you felt your burdens lifted. I hope you felt a sense of God's peace and God's presence with you. I asked for people to let me know any thoughts, any responses, anything that came to mind, and a couple of things that people have shared with me. First of all, this: even though Jonah got it totally wrong with God, he still had the good sense and the courage to pray. Even though Jonah got it totally wrong with God, his prayer was heard. Even though Jonah got it totally wrong with God, his prayer was answered. Now, if Jonah, who was so bold and rash as to openly defy God and to seek to do his will rather than God's, if he can pray, if he can be heard, and if he can have his prayer answered, then there's no excuse for us, is there? There really is. No situation we can put ourselves in where we become unworthy, where God doesn't want to hear from us. We have no excuse for not praying. The second thing that was mentioned was someone who just said that they just felt that as they began to pray, as they began to make space to be with God, they just got a sense of thinking that, do you know what, God, you know me. You know me completely inside and out, but I need to know you better. And that's true for all of us. We all need to know God better, and that's why we're spending this time deliberately to allow Him to reveal something more of Himself to us. So let's do that today. We'll start with a time of centering, as we did and as we do every time, which is a time of a couple of minutes or so where we just bring ourselves before God, where we lay aside all distractions. I'm hoping that if maybe you're watching this on your phone, switch your notifications off. Maybe you've got your phone, put it in another room, switch it off, keep it away from you, and just allow this to be a time with you and God where you are able to be completely at peace. Not always easy, I know that. We have to carve out the time and make that time, make it work. So let's begin with a time of centering and just putting to one side all those things that distract and get in the way, and focus our attention on Him. Lord, I just open my hands before you and I say, please take my burdens, remove my distractions. But as my hands are open, I also say, Lord, let me receive more of you, Jesus, by your Spirit. Let me know your presence here. We're going to look at a Psalm 100 today. It's a short psalm, only 5 verses, but there's lots in there to ponder on and reflect on and meditate on. So let's do that. So Psalm 100. Shout with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him, singing with joy. Acknowledge that the Lord is God. He made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving. Go into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. For the Lord is good. His unfailing love continues forever, and his faithfulness continues to each generation. What stood out to you from that first reading of that Psalm 100? I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read a different version, just because it gives us a slightly different perspective. It may just be something that jumps out differently to you. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. For the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. That first verse speaks of gladness and joy. I wonder how much you're experiencing gladness and joy at the moment. Or perhaps gladness may seem like a memory and joy may seem constantly out of reach. I don't know. Lots of us are experiencing different things, especially during this time of lockdown, or where perhaps we are key workers or we know key workers close to us. And we're all experiencing this storm in different ways. But this psalm reminds us of why we should be glad and where we find our joy. Because the Lord is God. He made us. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. He created us. He cares for us and he provides for us. And our response to that is to enter into his gates, to come into his courts with praise and thanksgiving. In other words, when we're struggling to recognize God, when we're wondering where he is, when we find joy hard to come by, being with God is the means by which we come to know that joy and that gladness again. And our response is praise and thanksgiving. So let's use this time to meditate on Psalm 100, to discover again the gladness and the joy that comes from being in his presence. Let's just reflect on Psalm 100 in silence for a few moments. I just get a sense that verse 4, enter his gates with thanksgiving, go into his courts with praise. I kind of imagine that as church gathers again after all this virus lockdown is over, there's just going to be such a sense of joy and anticipation, and we'll be rushing to see each other again, to hug each other again, to be with each other and enjoy each other's company physically, and engage with each other once more after so long of being distant and apart. And that's how we should be as we enter into a time of prayer and closeness with God. We should be anticipating his presence, desperately looking forward with enthusiasm and excitement to being with him once more. I think sometimes we lose that sense of anticipation and thrill for what's to come. So let's perhaps focus on that again as we just reflect on that. And so remaining in God's presence, knowing that we are here in his courts, we offer our requests to God, the people and the situations that are on our minds and on our hearts. You may have some from yesterday that you continue to pray for. We may be able to thank God for some of the things that have happened in the meantime. But let's offer these situations, our prayers and petitions to him now, knowing that we are secure in his presence. know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. And his pasture means a place of provision. He will always give us what we need. Sometimes it may not always seem like that. Sometimes it may not be in the way that we expect or hope, but God will always give us what we need. And so these things that we've offered to him in prayer, let's just take some time again to bring them before him, but in the context of knowing that he is the one who meets our needs, who provides for us, who cares for us and protects us. Father, it's easy to fill these times with our words. I pray you'll still our hearts and open our ears to hear from you by your Spirit. In Jesus' name. As we draw near the end, it's just good to be reminded of the unfailing love of God. It continues forever. His faithfulness continues throughout generations. And may we know that faithfulness, may we know that unfailing love in our situations and with those we're praying for. It's a strange setup, this, praying in front of a camera and hopefully bringing people with me as I pray. It's hard to get the timings right. It's hard to know how long is enough, how long is not enough. It's hard to know how many words are too many, how much guidance is enough guidance or not enough or too much. But I trust that you know where the pause button is, and if you need more time of stillness, just hit pause. Feel free to shut me up if you need to. But again, I would ask you to let me know how you've got on, feedback, anything that you feel God may have placed on your heart. Answers to prayer are good to hear. Anything you sense that God may be speaking to you about during this time of getting to know him better would be really good to hear and encouraging for all of us. I'll share it anonymously, so don't worry about that. Just keep us informed in terms of what God's doing as you're meeting with him in prayer and setting aside this time to be with him. In the meantime, God bless you. Let his face shine upon you. Let him give you his peace. In Jesus' name, amen.